this drawdown that we have seen from the most recent all-time highs, it's still not even 30% drawdown. And the significance of this is the two other drawdowns that we've seen since this market cycle has really started has been in 2024 and 2025.
There's a lot of concern around strategy unraveling and then consequently unraveling the crypto market,
The whole
right?
industry, right?
The reason they get unraveled is because they have so much debt to buy this Bitcoin. But the thing is, this debt isn't maturing until 2028. Their cost basis for all the Bitcoin they own is still at $74,000 USD. So, we're at about 91,000 USD. There's still a fair margin for that. They're still in the green.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Ted, welcome, mate.
Oh, mate, Pav, what's happened?
What's happened? What do you mean?
This market is horrendous.
Well, if you're paying attention to the market, yeah, doesn't look good.
Yeah,
Which is all of us.
You, the host of a podcast, not paying attention to the market.
No, I am. You just choose when you don't want to pay attention, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. What has happened? Let's break it down.
Well, there's a lot, right? Like we've seen Bitcoin drop under 100K. God, it's even teetering towards dropping under 90K US. We've seen altcoins take an absolute battering. We've got some top movers that we'll talk about later today, but I mean, there's some interesting signs there I think we should touch on that might be pretty telling for if we do get a bounce, what to be looking at. But yeah, look, it's basically, the way I see it, crypto is just reflecting what we're seeing broadly in the market right now. It's not anything anyone's looking forward to right now. Like there's not much confidence just in the broader market right now. Talking about an AI bubble in the stock world as well. Things taking a tumble down there as well. But what do you see, mate?
Yeah, the AI bubble is very interesting. There seems to be everyone's kind of on the fence about it, or everyone's either, very saying it's definitely a bubble as opposed to it's not. So that's interesting to play out. I think we're probably not there yet. It's still pretty early days compared to other bubbles we've seen in the tech world. But
you say Michael Burry's wrong?
It's hard to go against.
No, he's been wrong.
One of the best. He's wrong. He's been wrong a lot, but he was right once, and he's done very well off the back of that.
Sounds a bit like you, mate. When you're right, just that one time.
Yeah, that one time.
I think they made a movie about that too.
They should.
Yeah.
But listen, as you said, Bitcoin's teetering around 91K US. So we kind of want to focus this episode around: are we bottoming out, or are we at the start of a bear market? Because historically, we would be seeing a bear market right now.
Yep.
But a lot of, we've discussed it at length in the last few months. This year's been different. We haven't had that parabolic run up. So are we in a bear market, or is this a shakeout? And before bottoming out, and we go to new highs with Bitcoin and maybe even an alt season. So
there's some interesting views that we're going to break apart. They're not just our own as well, which I think is exciting. We'll take a look at what some of the prominent voices out there are saying right now, and just give our take on it too. And it'd be good to get everyone else's view as well. So if you have a take, something else you think that's worth paying attention to, please share it. We'd like to see it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you said, we've got heaps of analyst takes. So we've selected a few. We'll run through them later on in the show.
Should we start with the worst one first?
Yeah, let's start with the absolute worst one, which is I've got here Pav Hunter.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. What's your take on the market right now, Pav?
Yeah, look, it definitely is a lot of things happening in the macro scene, specifically in the US, that are quite problematic. I'm not going to dive into it right now, but if you just look up repo crisis US, you can read all about it. Essentially, they just don't have enough cash. And that's really affecting the monetary plumbing there. So I don't think we're going to see the market turn around until that gets resolved. And obviously, we've seen how big of an issue just politics has been this cycle. I feel like the market is more responsive to tweets from presidents than actually trying to formulate some sort of guidance on where the market's going from a data perspective this time around. But that's all right. That's where we are right now. But, my own gut take is I feel like everyone's super crowded on the bearish side. And I get very much the same feeling when I feel like everyone's too crowded on the bullish side. I basically want to tie this back to one key stat that I think everyone can hopefully draw some sort of, resonating factor with. This drawdown that we have seen from the most recent all-time highs, it's still not even 30% drawdown. And the significance of this is the two other drawdowns that we've seen since this market cycle has really started has been in 2024 and 2025. And at the start of 2024, we saw a 33.5% drawdown on Bitcoin. And at the start of 2025, we saw a 31.9%. And we talked about it at length, and you can look at the data yourself, but it's pretty normal to see like a 20 to 30% retracement in Bitcoin as it starts to basically play out its market cycle, right? So right now, at the time of recording, we're 28% down. And if you were to sort of formulate a number in between what we've seen already in the recent past, and let's say we picked down 32% from the highs, that would mean that Bitcoin could be basically at 85K and still be basically conducting what we'd call a standard pullback.
A correction.
A correction, right? A resetting. So I think as much as everyone's concerned right now, like I feel like everyone would be absolutely livid to see Bitcoin under 90K. But when we look at the data, like it is possible. And the only other thing I'd say, because obviously that's the more optimistic take, there is a pessimistic take that, okay, well, what if this is the top? What I would probably expect then is start to see a deeper correction. So if you look back to 2021, when we put in that high, around April, March in 2021, we saw that massive correction. That was a 51% retracement down. So if we do see something over 30%, I think we maybe start to put in a deeper correction. That means that the market probably isn't going to go much, much higher past the all-time highs. What we then saw in 2021 into 2022 was the market start to reaccelerate into the end of 21. We saw new all-time highs before we start to see the full-on market capitulating. But I think a big thing that's different this time is the macro environment. Like I keep saying, we were in an easing cycle back then. Money was easier to come by. It was more likely that even crypto projects got funding from outside of crypto land to basically do advertising, get people in. People, there were stimulus checks going around after the COVID era as well. So people were winning, I think was a key thing. And then that made them chase other opportunities to win as well. Whereas this time around, it feels like everyone's just been consistently losing because it has just been a much tougher environment. So I think it does cause for concern that we do have to take into account that potential downside. But yeah, 85K, not out of the question. Want to see the market bounce basically if we get to that level. And if we don't, I'd be concerned.
Yeah, no, it's a good shout. Like everyone's super fearful right now and they're like, this is the bear market or this is the end.
Well, you were saying before, fear and greed's at like, what, 10 or something?
Yeah, I think yesterday or day before it was at 10, which is basically one of the lowest we've ever seen it when it comes to Bitcoin. And what do we see when fear and greed bottoms out? We usually see a reversal. So I don't know. That's just, as we said last week, that's just one of the indicators. Like, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not what you should base your whole, investment strategy around, but it's an interesting point. And so is your point around this isn't actually as big of a pullback as we've seen, in the last couple of years, even in this cycle, even though it feels bigger, like it feels like a lot more
sentiment's way worse.
Doubt. Yeah. So short term's definitely uncertain, but next analyst I want to cover is someone who was on the show last week. We've got ASX trader, David Bird.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to that episode, we'll link it in the show notes because he's incredible.
Great chat.
And make sure to check him out on Twitter because he's got some really good insights and he's constantly updating his followers there. But essentially, when we spoke last week, he said he had a bullish weekly outlook on a lot of the asset classes. So like crypto, gold, stocks, you name it. He's actually kind of flipped that this week and he's based that on his gold to Bitcoin chart, which he spoke about at length last week. So this is the one he's mainly looking at, and he's saying like Bitcoin has a bearish outlook because gold is outperforming Bitcoin, and it's like the chart has sort of bottomed and then reversed. And he said historically, when we see this happen, we have not been able to see a sustained Bitcoin bull market. So, I mean, like, what do you take from that? He's basically said, if things are to reverse, we probably won't see it reverse until like a couple of weeks' time. Like, this isn't like his long-term outlook. It's sort of like that short to maybe shorter midterm. So he may change his mind or may see something different in a few weeks, but I guess he's just keeping things updated. And that's the chart he spoke about at length, the gold to Bitcoin chart. And he's saying it's for Bitcoin, it's not looking great right now. For gold, if you're a gold holder, maybe it is.
And the reason why that chart's important to him, it's all about rotation of risk. So gold's been the one thing that's actually performed quite consistently the last, let's call it 1.5 years. So if there ever was a point where Bitcoin is outperforming gold, that's a good sign, right? So he's definitely looking at that as almost like a bit of a bellwether to know when risk on markets like crypto could look more attractive again. Because right now it seems to be hard assets. Like it's definitely things like commodity markets are running hard, as he's been saying, as well as gold. So it's just waiting for the market to move its attention back to something like crypto.
Okay, who have we got next?
Got an ex-personality that goes by the name of Follis. And if you don't, I recommend giving him a follow. But he has a very interesting take that I think kind of is very contrary to a lot of what we've been talking about this whole year. He's talking about institutional adoption being a bad thing. So I'll read out his tweet. So he says here, controversial take. Increased institutional involvement in this cycle doesn't mean that a shallow dip or a soft bear market is guaranteed. In fact, it means it's very unlikely. 2026 could be the biggest unwind this space has ever experienced precisely because of institutions. this cycle was an institution cycle, which sounds bullish on paper, but the reality is that when institutions are forced sellers, once the market goes below a certain threshold, they have clients to protect and risk management rules to follow. They do not hodl, they do not have diamond hands, and they sell directly into cash. So people saying that because of institutions, Bitcoin will never go below 60 or 70K, he's kind of alluding to that it's going to be the opposite. He very much believes that when the time comes, they'll sell, and they'll sell in absolute droves. So I kind of don't mind that view. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's different to what we've discussed a lot of the time, right? Like we've always seen like institutional inflows as a part of, the market maturing, and that's just going to mean like the volatility for Bitcoin in particular is going to be less. But I guess he does make the point that, these institutional clients have clients to protect, and therefore are going to be more risk adverse and maybe offload their Bitcoin faster than say the retail market would. So it's an interesting point that I hadn't considered before. I think as a collective though, like, just having institutions involved makes it more mature and more stable in general. Like if they all, give each other a call and be like, all right, we're out of this Bitcoin thing.
Is that how it
maybe,
works?
yeah, but I don't think that's how it works. So I like the contrary opinion, but I'm not sure I'm completely sold on it.
Yeah, I think the adoption that it brings is probably far greater than the capitulation that it could bring.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I've been around times when there's been heavily retail involvement. I think altcoins are a great example of this. When the times get tough, they don't have diamond hands either. Quite a common phrase is lettuce hands. I do think at the same time the market structure has shifted. I'd be more concerned about these digital asset treasury companies. So companies that have been spun up to hold crypto assets, the company itself becomes insolvent or, just is mismanaged into the ground. And then that becomes a forced seller or it becomes like a liquidation estate, like we saw with FTX. Like maybe something like that is what I would be concerned about. And I think I mentioned like at the start of this year, that's one of the bubbles I'm waiting to see inflate to watch it pop when the bear market comes.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We've got a news story about strategy, MicroStrategy coming later on, which is kind of like teetering on what you were just saying.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, they're okay, but you're right. Like we saw so many crypto treasury companies spin up
There was like
this
heaps
year,
of them, yeah.
and it's like sure, strategy is like sort of the premium top end of that, but it's not to say like they're not in the same position. So
no, you got to think about let's move away from Bitcoin. It's the companies that are buying things like altcoins, like Hyper. I think there was a corporate treasury around that, BNB, IP. So they're the ones that I'm more sketchy on.
And they've all been hit hard. So
yes,
yeah, no, very good points. Okay, so the last opinion, or the last analyst we want to cover is the collective shift. So Ben Simpson and the guys over there, we've obviously had
good
them
friends
on the show at length. But they always put out great reports on their platform, so make sure to go check out Collective Shift. But they've kind of broken it down into the short term and then into the medium long term. So short term, they're basically bearish because until crypto stabilizes and momentum rebuilds. So they're looking at it as, there's no real short-term catalyst happening at the moment. What else? There's no clear reversal showing yet. So we could see a potential multi-month consolidation. Like all things are sort of looking very uncertain in the short term. And nothing, like they mentioned, like no really bullish catalysts that we're seeing right now. Everything in the US government's a bit murky with the shutdown and also until the Fed starts to flip and bring some more positive changes there. Like it's all very uncertain. And I guess people are being extra cautious with that.
Yep. I think that's a big part of the puzzle too, just to go back to the US again. I know we hate talking about it, but unfortunately they are one of the biggest consumers of financial assets in the world. So they've completely reset their expectations on interest rate drops. We saw only like 2 months ago, everyone was expecting cuts. So everyone you could argue, started front running and buying assets, risk on assets, because interest rates drop. Cash gets cheaper, so you'd rather be investing that money, right?
Yeah.
So now that's completely reset. So I think that sums it up nicely. It's exactly what the collective shifts is saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, we can't say the T word.
What's the T word?
The President of the United States.
Oh, he who can't be named.
Because we can get restricted on YouTube. So we might be very creative with how we sort of name drop him, whether it's the Orange Man or
DJT.
Yeah, exactly. So if we sound a bit weird, that's the reason why. But I think you were clean there, so nice work. So
thank you.
And the collective shift go on to say, look at their like medium-term targets, and they very much think that the bull market is very much still intact.
Yep.
So they basically brought up the point that you made up, or that you brought up, is 26% down from the all-time high, so it's
Okay.
not as big as the previous pull downs we've seen in this cycle. So this is still, fits the profile for a mid-cycle correction, exactly what you were saying.
Yep.
And then sort of they're looking for some catalyst to play out in order for things to reverse and Bitcoin to hit new all-time highs and potentially even an alt season. So what they're looking for is the Fed eventually flips, when liquidity begins to expand again. We've talked at length about, the money supply and the Bitcoin correlation. That's always been strongly correlated. So when that, liquidity starts to expand, we typically see Bitcoin do well off the back of that because risk on, obviously, or like people favor Bitcoin as a risk on asset.
Yep.
When DJT, as you mentioned, appoints the new Fed governor, so the person to replace Jerome Powell, which is, I think, May next year.
May next year, yeah.
Yeah, and the idea there is like he's going to appoint someone that's a lot more, dovish when it comes to interest rates and stimulating the economy. So, and then last thing is midterm election dynamics.
Yeah, I can't get over that not being a big issue. Like taking a battering on the DJT's taking a battering. I just dropped it. DJT's taking a battering in the opinion polls, and I feel like someone like him won't let that stand. I feel like that matters more to him than anything else. So he's got to impress the people next year.
But you're essentially just saying, like, you think he's going to he wants to end his reign on a positive note, right?
Yeah, I think it's a case of, I think we said it last week, like get the bad news out of the way first, and then there's probably not that much optimistic good news to come. Like we shouldn't expect something like the COVID cycle again. For God's sake, we shouldn't. Like otherwise, we're just going to see inflation just double down.
Yeah.
But we're going to see hopefully some sort of pressure release valve, right? And we want crypto to sort of, be a nice little faucet for when the money starts flowing.
Yeah.
Starts to see a bit of a rotation.
Well, he may not be able to avoid the bad news that's coming to do with a certain file that's been investigated.
Yeah.
Which we won't go into.
Could get
but,
spicy.
Yeah. Just keep that in mind.
You could.
But yeah, that's sort of the 4 analysts that we covered, you being one of them. So nice work.
Well, it's good to see that someone else was thinking the same thing about the drawdown from the peaks, because I think that's a very easy way to measure the market. So
exactly, and we just covered, or like Collective Shift covered short and medium term. Long term, I think it's never in doubt, right? In terms of Bitcoin, like we've seen sort of the adoption from both institutions, governments, and individuals. We're seeing that grow year on year. Yes, it's going to have these pull downs, but ultimately the long term outlook has never been as bullish.
Just looks solid. Yeah.
Yep.
So on that, I think we should dive into some top movers. There's basically only 3 assets I want to cover, and that's the only 3 assets that are currently outperforming for the last 7 days. So Zcash, Aster, Monero. So Aster and Zcash and Monero, I feel like we've covered them quite a bit in recent times. So I guess what we could take away from there is there's still a market structure of demand for these assets, even though we're seeing things sell off.
Yeah, privacy coins, right?
Privacy coins, yeah. Aster still being that one outlier, the BNB chain hyperliquid competitor. So obviously some sort of structural bit around that too, where there's just money continuously coming back into that asset.
Do you reckon it has anything to do with the fact that CZ got pardoned?
Oh, yeah.
And he's heavily tied to Aster?
Yeah, he'd be buying, even him personally, and I'm sure.
Yeah, because they were getting called out for, like, I guess, I don't know if you could call it insider trading, but they're basically very closely tied to Binance and CZ. I think he's even involved in their team and their funding.
Yep.
So yeah,
he's been pretty open about that, but I feel like that is again part of like the demand, like making it seem as an attractive thing. Because the one thing people need to know about crypto is assets like this during good times, during hard times, their prices are advertising. So if you want to basically build an asset that's going to see a bit of a demand when the market actually does take off, you want to start seeing signs like this, I feel. But the Zcash one's interesting. I can't believe that's still going.
Yeah. And then top losers. I guess like
the
losers are outweighing the winners big time this week.
They are.
To be expected. But at the very top of the list for the top 100 coins is Pump.Fun.
Not a big surprise, right? I'm sure that ecosystem is suffering just because there's a lot of money just being dragged out of crypto right now. So,
well, yeah, there's no longer risk there for people to be buying, tiny meme coins on Pump.Fun.
No.
Typically, yeah, like we've spoken in Pump.Fun because that's often been in the top gainers.
It has.
But that's obviously been in bullish, more optimistic times. So yeah, it's no real surprise to see it being drawn down when in times are tougher. So that's down 36% in the last 7 days.
Yeah, and the other top was just stick as a top 3, but Arbitrum is second most down. It's down 26%, and then Aave down 26%. But to be honest, as you run down the list, everything's down about 25 to 22%. So that's like the top 100 coins.
This is like what happens. It shakes out a lot of the retail market, and they buy in. They might have bought in, close to the top, and then all of a sudden they see this, 50% drawdown, probably overall, not just 7 days. They get spooked, and they often say, "Well, I don't want to be in crypto anymore. This is, the reality of it," which is a shame. Obviously, we don't want that to happen to newcomers in crypto, but we've spoken about it at length. That is like, this is what happens to everyone when they first get into crypto. And it's about, learning from those mistakes. Like, we try and teach people to not get, sucked in when, times things are going parabolic, but it's just the way it's human psychology.
It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
But the one thing you take away from this as well, just to sort of, I guess, try and give people another additional value add, is just because something's down 30%, it's not like Coles or Woolies with a big red sticker. It's on sale. It can still go down another 20 or 30%. So your grand can still, if you invest $1,000, you can still be down $400 before it actually starts to go higher. So again, it's all about the market here, waiting for strength, waiting for a reason for it to move higher, which again, as we talked about at length today, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So I think right now, the biggest thing I'm paying attention to, and I recommend paying attention to, is just Bitcoin, waiting for that to finally start to form some sort of settling bottom. We don't know when that's going to happen. Could be this year, could be next year. Hopefully next week. That'd be nice. But again, just be very, very cautious with a lot of these speculatory altcoins, because again, if we don't see the broader market recover, these things, there's nothing stopping them being down 40%, 50%, 60%, right? So just be careful.
Awesome. Well, let's move into our one and only news story, because it is quite lengthy and there are a lot of developments that have happened over the last few days. And as we said before, it's relating to, Michael Saylor and Strategy. So it's a bit of a saga going on. Initially, there was rumors of them selling, and why that's significant is Michael Saylor's basically said, he'll never sell Bitcoin. He's kind of like the Warren Buffett, being like buy and hold, because he sees Bitcoin as the asset for the future and so forth. But then there was data coming out from Arkham, which is like a on-chain analytics firm,
those guys.
that were basically speculating that they'd sold like 70,000 Bitcoin, which is like a small portion of their Bitcoin, but it just is contrary to the fact that he said, like, we'll never sell. He basically came out on Twitter and said that was fake news, and he doesn't know where that came from.
Must be AI.
Must be AI, yeah. And then later, actually within the last sort of 24 hours, their Strategy came out and said they'd purchased another 8,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So adding to their stack. And their cost basis for all the Bitcoin they own is still at $74,000 USD. So, we're at about 91,000 USD. So there's still a fair margin for that. Obviously, if we come down to 85, it might get a bit more concerning, but they're still in the green.
Yeah, they're definitely being poked at a lot on social media. Their stock price is down 51% over the last 6 months. It got as high as about, I think, $450 a share. It's now down to $195. So I think there's quite a bit of flack being thrown at Strategy right now. So I'm sure they're fanning quite a few fires.
Well, there's a lot of concern around, like Strategy unraveling and then consequently unraveling the crypto market,
the whole
right?
industry, right?
Exactly, because they hold so much Bitcoin, and the reason they get unraveled is because they have so much debt to buy this Bitcoin. But the thing is, this debt isn't maturing until 2028, so it's likely they'll have to sell any of their Bitcoin to meet those obligations just yet. As we said, they're still in the green, so they're still kind of in the clear. And then like a research and brokerage firm, TD Cowen, who are very closely tied to Strategy, have basically come out and said they're super bullish on them. They're calling for a $585 stock by the end of 2027, or by 2027, so I guess the end of 2026. So that's like 170% uplift from here until the end of 2026. So obviously they're very bullish. They don't have any concerns about insolvency or them having to sell Bitcoin. So, I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's all just opinions, right? But these are opinions coming from very strategic and highly paid research firms and analysts. So it's always important to look at.
It is. And that's obviously good for Bitcoin too, because again, if you look into MSTR or Strategy and Bitcoin, they're obviously, because one's a reflection of Bitcoin's price, they kind of move in tandem. But
it's leveraged Bitcoin, right? So it kind of, moves more aggressively than Bitcoin, and vice versa in the opposite direction.
Yeah, which is what we're seeing. Yeah, it's interesting times. I think we'll come back next week and hopefully have something to talk about to sort of update everyone. Obviously, there's quite a few things. I think the general consensus is everyone's sort of stuck in the lurch right now. No one really knows which way this tug of war is going to go. I'm kind of concerned personally that something has to fundamentally break in the system before we actually get out of this, which I don't.
Well, how are you playing it right now?
I'm just short-term trading, just holding cozy in my spot. I did take profits when Bitcoin was about 121K, so I'm quite happy with that. But like always, I could have taken more. I also don't foresee this as being the cycle top, and if I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong on that. That's a decision I've made. But for me, it's just stepping away. Just had kid number 4, so I'm not really doing too much, to be honest.
Yeah. So overall, when answering the question, bear market or bottoming out and going high, are you leaning towards the latter?
I still think if we're in a bear market, you still see what we normally refer to as like a dead cat bounce, where we still see a massive rally in Bitcoin. But if it moves really fast and aggressive towards the recent all-time highs, that's when I'd be really concerned. So I still think there's a chance that we're more likely to bounce and keep going down. I could be wrong there, but that's kind of how I'm playing it right now. So I think everyone that's calling for it to go lower and lower and lower, they're just jumping on the same bandwagon of people that kept saying it's going to go higher and higher and higher just 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So I think there's more chance of upside, but I don't know if it's all-time highs. That's what I don't know. So I'd wait to see what happens when we get there.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say 85K possible from here. If not, it's going to be somewhere in this ballpark.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot more defensive within the last sort of week or so. Just with all the uncertainty going on, I've basically sold a lot of profits from my Sui, Solana, and Hype into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin probably makes up now 75% of my SwiftX portfolio. Just to be more defensive and protective right now until we see something more significant play out, and then maybe I'll allocate back into alts when things are looking more bullish, if that ever happens.
Didn't go into Zcash?
Probably not Zcash, as I don't think it's listed on SwiftX anymore.
Oh yeah, what am I saying? Yeah, privacy coins, you can't even buy them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just sort of how I'm playing it, because alts typically bleed a lot more in times like this, as we've seen so far, and the top movers. So yeah, just being a bit more conservative with my approach there. I've been in the position before where I'm just like, well, if I think it's going to come back, why don't I just hold on to my alts? But, I'm not like absolutely certain it's going to come back. So that's hence why I'm being a lot more defensive. I'm a bit older, a bit wiser.
It's just different this time.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what alts are going to bounce back. Maybe it's Asta and not Hyper. Like, you just don't know. Like, you just got to wait and see. It's a lot harder than what it used to be. I'd say that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a big week coming up. We've got the Australian Crypto Convention happening this week, which is kind of an awkward time given what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
But you and I will be there interviewing, some of the punters and some of the guests that are there.
Yes, we will be.
So we'll have some interesting chats. We'll put out a lot of content on socials. We'll also package up a bit of an episode with some of the shorter interviews we have. So make sure to check that out over the next couple of weeks. We've also got a really cool guest coming on Friday, which we're flying down to Sydney for. This man's coming from France just to talk to us.
How good's that?
And maybe
that's the only reason why.
Well, maybe to attend the conference as well, but
mainly us.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But if anyone's in Sydney at the convention, don't be a stranger. Just come say hello.
Absolutely, and come have a chat.
Yeah, sounds good.
Pav doesn't bite.
Sometimes.
All right, thanks guys. See ya.
See ya.